Hey, joining us now, Congressman from the 9th District, Morgan Griffith, Republican. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Great to be with you. How are you this morning?
Oh, we're fired up. TPP, Obama trade coming up this week in the House. Now, I'm not in favor of this, as you know, so truth in advertising. And, Congressman, as you know, I was also one of about only 3 Republicans in the history of the world opposed to NAFT. I even can't stand calling it by its acronym. Back in the day, I was thinking me and Pat Buchanan were the only 2 Republicans opposed to that. I'm opposed to this. What say you?
Well, I'm opposed to it for several reasons, and you do point out correctly that while some may argue that NAFTA helped the United States, it was devastating to the 9th District of Virginia. We still have some of the highest unemployment in the state. In places like Martinsville last year for 1 month, Galax trumped Martinsville on highest unemployment. These are areas that were hit by NAFTA and then hit by the Chinese dumping furniture into our nation. And so, you know, I have that as a backdrop to making a decision. And then I just have the one that's really easy, and that is, do I trust President Obama to make a good deal? The same president who thought that we had reset our relationship with Russia and everything was going to be great there, and then they take over Crimea and invade Ukraine. The same president who thought ISIS was a JV team, the same president who thought Yemen was an example of good foreign policy and how our system was working. The same president who thinks that the Canadians shouldn't be trusted with the Keystone XL pipeline and that Israel is not necessarily our friend and that Iraq is. I don't know that I trust this president, so this makes this easy. I don't have to sit down and go through it in detail. It makes it easy. I don't trust this president to make a good decision for the United States of America, so why would I give up Congress's role in a trade negotiation where we just get an up or down, we don't get to make any amendments? I can't do that with this president. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it with another president somewhere down the road, but I just think this president has terrible judgment when it comes to what is good for the United States, and I just don't feel comfortable with it, and I can't do that to the people of the 9th District of the United States of America.
Congressman, why are so many Republicans in your caucus so willing to give up congressional authority at every turn? I find that this to be, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're in Congress, why would you want to give up your authority, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president? To me, that's immaterial. Why at every turn is the leadership willing to just basically give up its opportunity to weigh in on things?
Well, on most things, I don't understand it. We need to be whenever we set up a new committee to study something, instead of giving the appointments to the secretary of whatever, we need to say some of those, just like we do in Virginia, some of those may go to the governor or the president, some of those may go to a secretary, but some of those are going to be picked by the leadership in the House and in the Senate. We don't do that, and I'm working on that behind the scenes, and we actually got that added into one bill recently where the Speaker and the Majority Leader would at least get an appointment. So there's a legislative input, so you don't just have the executive branch represented when you're studying something. They give that power away all the time. Now, in regard to trade agreements, things have gotten so complex, and instead of just dealing one-on-one with one other nation like Great Britain or Canada, people are trying to do multiple nation deals. There is an argument that the president needs some flexibility,
right?
And that's why I said I might do it in a future administration. I don't want to rule it out, but I just don't trust this president's judgment, and I can't give that power up or that authority up to somebody whose judgment I do not trust.
Now, you know what's interesting? We don't agree, Congressman, with a lot when it comes to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. But he said yesterday that there wasn't, and I'm giving a direct quote, he said, "I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell this framework in Iran will get approved by Congress after review." What do you make of that?
Well, I don't think it will, but we'll have to take a look. I mean, what the president's arguing now is, well, we've just agreed to agree. Can we lift the sanctions for a little while? I don't think that will pass either, but I just don't see this going forward in Congress. Most of us understand that Iran still wants to destroy the United States, wants to destroy its allies. I mean, it's absolutely shocking that the administration didn't seem to be more concerned about Russia. Again, Russia selling strategic weapons to the Iranians after we've been working for years to keep them from doing it. It's kind of like a shrug of the shoulders. Oh well, there they go. I mean, I don't know what this administration is thinking. You know, it is impossible for me to figure out what this administration is thinking on foreign policy. And, you know, a lot of times I disagree with this administration on political philosophy. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think anybody in the United States disagreed that we ought to still be making sure that we're defending the United States. And allowing weapons to go automatically or easily to those who have declared for the destruction of the United States is, to me, unfathomable why you wouldn't have a stronger reaction. But that's the way this president is. And the rest of the world is going to continue to treat us like we are imbeciles if we continue to act that way.
Well, look, we just put together this framework with the Iranians that a lot of people on the surface looking at it. I don't have, of course, the detail that those like yourself will ultimately have, but on the surface it's very suspect. And then you turn around and you've got Vladimir Putin selling a missile defense system to the Iranian government that would basically insulate any nuclear facilities they have from missile attack, which is really the shotgun that we hold over their head, because the argument is if they do anything that's out of line, well, we can always just take them out. Well, if they have the nuclear or other missile defense systems, then there wouldn't be any opportunity for us to do that. So how does that make any sense?
It makes no sense whatsoever. And, you know, I just very, very, very worried about this administration. I mean, we can have our philosophical fights, but, you know, in the past, we've always wanted to have a strong America. Some may agree or disagree on whether or not we should be going into wars in other countries. I get that. But this is about making sure that we don't allow a nation that has sworn to destroy us to receive weapons that will give them, in just a few years, a decade and a half maybe, the capability of actually delivering to our shores a nuclear weapon.
I mean, it's just
absolutely unconscionable, unthinkable, and I cannot for the life of me figure out what is going on with this president and his foreign policy.
You know what's going to be interesting, Congressman Griffith, is how Hillary Clinton is going to be defending this when the campaign turns real. I mean, right now we've got the Scooby-Doo mystery van. We've got the stop at the Wawa or wherever she stopped, and they've very contrived, controlled meetings with students that, you know, everybody was vetted and everything was choreographed. But when the campaign turns real and she has to start answering some of these questions, isn't it going to be interesting to see how she actually responds and has to defend these actions?
I think she's hoping she won't have to defend them, that she'll just say they're trying to pick on you know, me because I'm a woman, or because, you know, they're conservatives and they hate me and my husband. I don't think she's going to plan on defending. I think that was her strategy when she said, in regard to Benghazi, you know, what difference does it make anyway? Mm-hmm. And I think she hopes the American people do not think that it makes any difference, that she was a part of this administration, and that she was a major player in one of the great disasters of the last 20 or 30 years, when we lost an ambassador, when we were under attack, when our troops were apparently told something along the lines of, you know, don't help. It may not have been a full stand down, but it was definitely a don't go help these folks. All of that happened under her watch, and she thinks it doesn't make any difference. And it makes a difference in the world. It told the world that we were not willing to defend ourselves, and that we wouldn't, in fact, allow them to go forward other parts of the world and do things that were against American interests. It makes a big difference. And she's hoping nobody will care. And unfortunately, she might be right. It's up to those of us listening and those of us in Congress to try to make sure that we hold her accountable.
Well, the mainstream media isn't, so that is up to your committees in Congress and people like us on talk radio, because you're not going to get anybody holding her accountable in the mainstream media. Congressman, on Thursday, I believe, you you voted to repeal what is commonly referred to as the death tax. Now,
yes, sir.
Some Democrats have railed against that, saying, look, this is only affecting the top 2% of 1% of Americans, and that Republicans are complaining that there's an $18 trillion debt, and yet they're giving a tax cut to the wealthiest of the wealthy Americans. How do you respond to that?
Well, they look at it and they say this is the wealthiest of the wealthiest, but they forget that land is expensive, and if you want to have a family farm, let's say in Montgomery County, just outside of Blacksburg, that some would say the best use of your land would be to turn that into apartment complexes for students, but you want to continue farming. All of a sudden the patriarch or the matriarch of the family dies, and you've got to pay estate taxes on it because you have enough land to actually have a decent farm in an area where land is expensive, and you're not going to be able to pay those taxes, and you're going to have to sell the family farm. That's what we're talking about. And, the government has taxed this money when you made it, taxed this money when you invested it or sold something that was a capital gain. And, you've been taxed on any number of times in your lifetime. And for a lot of us, and I'm included in this, I want to leave my children something. Now, they won't get a lot from me, but I want to leave them something. But for people who are trying to leave a business or a family farm, you take any small business with a lot of equipment or with an inventory, and all of a sudden you've got a tremendous amount of value there because, nothing is cheap these days. And so I think it's time that we got rid of it. I was proud to have voted to get rid of it in Virginia, and I'm proud to have voted last Thursday to get rid of it nationally as well. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I believe that it will probably, if it gets out of the Senate, the president has said he would veto it. It's unlikely to get out of the Senate because of the modern filibuster rule. But, this is something that I think we need to do. We can frame part of the debate for 2016, let people know we're trying to save the family farm. We don't, it's interesting. A lot of those folks on the left don't like big corporate farms. Well, the estate tax, the death tax, just about guarantees that's all who will survive in the long run if you keep taxing the small family farms out of existence.
So, Congressman Griffith, that's a pretty fascinating argument. I haven't really contemplated that, but just as you said it, I think you're right. When you ask Democrats that, what do they say?
Well, they just say that, if you've got that much money, you can figure out a way to do the financing and you can go to the bank and figure it out. That's not always the case, particularly when you have multiple heirs. Maybe if you had one heir, you could do that, but you've already got the issue of multiple heirs, and then you have to throw the taxes on top of it. Makes it very, very difficult for small to medium-sized businesses or family-run businesses or family farms to stay in existence when you have a death tax.
I want to get to local politics a minute. Congressman, you've been involved down there locally with the GOP for a very long time. You served in the State House. This race in District 21, Dr. Nancy Dye, trying to knock off three-term incumbent John Edwards. Edwards not raising a lot of money, only raised $5,000 in the past cycle. Some people say might be a little bit of out of touch. I've got this on my radar screen as the biggest potential upset for the GOP come November. Am I going to be right?
Well, I think you're right that it has great potential. The question is one of energy and turnout. If Nancy and us Republicans can get folks energized and have them realize that this is an opportunity to get a seat back into Republican hands, where we can have folks who vote the way we think they ought to vote as opposed to voting against us most of the time, then we can win. But if folks sit home and say, well, I don't know that it really matters, or I don't care, then I think the Democrats will hold that seat and John Edwards will continue to win. But if people are energized and they get out and vote and get their friends and neighbors out to vote, this is a race that can be won.
Now, what about that conservative Democrat Commonwealth's attorney that was going to run, made noise about running as an independent? Have you heard anything more on that?
I haven't heard anything new on that, and that certainly will change the dynamics of the race. We'll just have to wait and see.
Can you make a prediction?
Well, I think it's way too early to make a prediction. I do believe that if the folks who lean Republican turn out, then that race goes Republican. If they don't, then it stays Democrat. It's just that simple. I mean, it isn't rocket science. The votes are there. We just have to make sure they turn out. You've got to give people something to believe in and the energy to say, hey, this can be done.
Okay, I predict Dye wins, biggest upset on the boards. Say you want more information, go to morgangriffith.house.gov, morgangriffith.house.gov, and here's what you have to do. Go on his site and sign up for his newsletter. It comes out on Tuesday, and it's the first thing I read. He does a great job, keeps you up to date, not only what's going on in his district, but what's going on in Congress. It's one of the best written ones out there, and I subscribe to a whole bunch of them. That's my first read. Go to morgangriffith.house.gov and sign up for that right now.